Everyone, who, no matter who they are, should have an estate plan, whether you own property or not, but especially if you're owning property.
Hi, this is Moriah Wicker and Cassie DW with KW here in Plymouth.
Welcome to Selling the South Shore, Real Estate in Real Life.
Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or live like a local, we've got you covered. Let's dive into today's topic. So we're going to give you a little preview about what the class is going to talk about, who it's meant for, and if after watching this you're interested in getting on our list to be notified of when the next class is, comment help below.
Awesome. Yeah. So this year we really learned how important estate planning is, not just for your families, but also in the real estate transaction. So we brought in our favorite attorney, Kallie, to kind of go over what estate planning is and why it's important, and just how to set your families up in the best way possible. So Kallie, why estate planning?
Great question. Thank you guys for having me. Everyone, who, no matter who they are, should have an estate plan, whether you own property or not, but especially if you're owning property, right? I mean, that's generally our biggest asset, and we want to protect that as much as possible. So there's a couple of rules. An estate plan generally consists of 3, sometimes 4 documents. There's what's called your healthcare proxy. I'll go over that. You have a durable power of attorney, and then you have your will. Sometimes you can also set up a trust to protect your assets, and I think our class is going to go into a lot more detail of how to be able to do that, which is great. You do need to be 18 or over in order to set up an estate plan here in Massachusetts, and your will needs to be signed by 2 witnesses who are uninterested, meaning they're not taking as part of your estate. But it's really important to set that up, because if you don't have an estate plan, and God forbid something does happen to you and you pass away, the laws of Massachusetts govern what happens to your belongings, your personal effects. That may be what you want to happen, but it might not be, especially where certain situations come up where you might not be as close to family anymore. You might have a blended family. So it's really important to have it written and in place to protect your assets and protect your loved ones.
Awesome. Yeah, and especially I know we're working right now on a deal where an estate plan wasn't put into place for somebody that passed almost 20 years ago.
Almost 20 years ago, property was owned by a husband and a wife. Someone didn't draft a deed correctly to 2005 when the clients bought the property. They're now going to sell 20 years later, and we can't close on time because an estate plan wasn't done. And now we're in probate court, which is costly and really time consuming. It's going to take about 3 months of a delay in order for us to close on time.
Yeah, so definitely important to get it set up.
Put it in writing, please.
Yes.
So Kallie, we know that your estate plan is a critical part of your also financial plan and kind of how you look at planning for the future. But you mentioned healthcare proxy is part of that process. And I know when my mom had a stroke and she couldn't talk for a few days, and I'm an only child, my dad has already passed. So I was that person kind of stepping in to make decisions. And it was really difficult in like that first week because we didn't have anything in place. So like, what are some of the important parts that you mentioned, and like how could that have been different for me?
Absolutely. So with a healthcare proxy, it's someone being able to talk for you when you can't speak for yourself any longer. So it's healthcare decisions, like you said with your mom. God forbid you're, incapacitated, meaning you can't make those decisions for yourself any longer. You are in a coma, God forbid. Alzheimer's, dementia, obviously, is a growing disease that's been going on in the country. So it's important to put it in place now, because when you get to the point where you are incapacitated, meaning a doctor has deemed that you can't make those decisions for yourself anymore, then you can't name someone to make those decisions, and you're going to end up going into probate and family court, which again, time consuming and costly, in order to have the court appoint someone for you. So you can set that up in advance, and it can take effect immediately now, so that in the event that something happens to you down the road, someone is able to make those decisions for you and have access to, have informed decisions and take care of you when you can't take care of yourself.
Awesome. So it sounds like just the healthcare proxy piece would have been really helpful at that time. With my personal experience, even something like, bills started to come in, right? I had to call Eversource. I had to call all these companies or credit cards. I had to speak on her behalf for more than just her health. How would an estate plan have been helpful, if at all, in that situation?
Absolutely. So healthcare proxy or healthcare decisions, making those decisions for medications, surgeries, things like that. Then you have what's called a durable power of attorney. So that also can take effect immediately, and that survives any incapacity. So God forbid with mom with her stroke, you would have been able to pay those bills, get access to her bank accounts, be able to borrow money, be able to sign a deed on a property. A lot of attorneys, we don't really love having a deed signed under a power of attorney, although it is possible in certain circumstances. So you would have been able to contact her bank, her lenders, things like that, to pay bills, write credit cards, do things like that for her financial decisions. So power of attorney is for financial matters. Healthcare proxy is for healthcare decisions.
Gotcha.
Similar.
Awesome. Good to know.
All right, Kelly. So, like our instance there, where now this transaction's in probate and it's going to delay and cost money. So, how do you avoid probate when you are wanting to sell a house?
Absolutely. So, again, protecting your property is so important. This was actually a drafting error that could have been avoided. However, the best thing to do is to have, at minimum, a will in place, because a will can name what's called a personal representative. That's someone who's going to act on your behalf when you're not here any longer. The other bigger thing is that we can put our property into a trust or an LLC, a corporation. You can protect your assets in that regards. A trust, there are various types of trusts. The two main trusts we see are revocable and irrevocable. And I think we're going to go into more detail at our seminars on what's the important factors to consider when setting up both of those, and how best to protect your assets, obviously, during that time to avoid that probate and the lengthy process and the cost that it's going to take.
Okay. So if it's in a trust and the owner passes away, that means you don't have to go through the probate process at all?
Great question. So what a trust does is you name successors. So you have a trustee and you have what's called beneficiaries. When you set up a trust, you set up alternate. So an alternate trustee and alternate beneficiaries for when those people are no longer here anymore. A trust is an entity that owns a property now. It's not in any individual person's name. So therefore, they're able to sell the property because this entity owns it, not the decedent who passed away any longer.
I know you mentioned that to have an estate plan, you need to be 18 years old, but do I need to wait until I get my AARP card to start the process? And who should, like my husband and I, we do have a will. We don't have a full estate plan done, but we do have a will because when I got into the business, I had a similar transaction to what you guys are talking about. And we wanted to make it very clear before we bought our first home, but after we had our first son, what our wishes were for him. God forbid, anything had happened to us.
Absolutely. I could say that's probably the number one misconception, is that it's for older people when they're getting ready to go into a nursing home, and at that point it's time to set things up. Life happens. Unfortunate events happen all the time. So it's important to set it up as early as possible. And with you, and you're expecting, congratulations.
Thank you.
An estate plan will actually, you can take into effect any after-born children after you set up your initial estate plan, which is important to know. But you should be doing it as soon as possible because, again, even whether you own a property or not, it's so important to let everyone know what you want to happen to your personal belongings and your assets when you're not here. Because, again, if you don't make that decision, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a chart, actually, that they go by when you don't have a will in place. That'll say what's to happen to your things. And it may be what you want, but more likely than not, it might not be exactly what you wanted.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome. Well, anything else? I know I'm going to benefit a lot from being at the class and learning from, the attorney side of things, as well as from the financial advisor side of things.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, being able to set it all up. And I know once you have kids, I feel like that's a big life moment where you kind of start to think about this stuff.
Yeah.
So especially with like my daughter in the future, I want to make sure that all of our assets and everything are set in place and we know what's going to go on, and God forbid something happens. So make sure you follow along. We will be releasing the 4 dates. I believe the first one is in January. And if you have questions or you just want to know what it's about, you don't have to set up an estate just by coming to the class, but at least get the knowledge and
make a plan for 5 years from now. And even if you can't make the class, reach out to us and we can still kind of get those wheels in motion for you to, get your plan together.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power. So even if you just have some questions and you want to come in, obviously we're more than happy to answer those questions and, again, protect those assets that Cassie and Moriah are helping you purchase. You want to make sure that it's going to be in your family for a long time and that that's not going to be an issue when you want to sell and go find that next property.